The moment I heard her say the words, my entire world tilted on its axis. Honestly, I was only with him for the money. She laughed, her voice sharp and careless, slicing through the air like a blade. The party buzzed around me, oblivious to my presence in the hallway, clutching the drink I'd never even taken a sip of. My fiancée, the woman I thought I'd spend my life with, was laughing with her friends, mocking me, bragging about how she'd fooled me. "I mean, come on," she continued, her words dripping with arrogance. "He's sweet, sure, but I'm not marrying sweet. I'm marrying his bank account." I froze. My knuckles turned white as I gripped the glass tighter. My breathing became shallow, the room spinning slightly. Every memory of us together, every promise we made, every late-night confession, it all shattered in an instant. And then, as if to twist the knife deeper, one of her friends asked, "But what if he finds out? What if he leaves you?" I leaned closer, holding my breath. She scoffed. "Leave me? Please. He's too soft for that. He'd probably cry, maybe beg for me back. Men like him," she laughed again, "they don't leave." The world around me fell silent. It was just her voice, the cruel words echoing in my mind. But she didn't know me, not the real me. I turned on my heel, leaving the party without another word. The cold night air hit my face as I stepped outside. My mind raced, anger bubbling under the surface. It wasn't just the betrayal. It was the audacity, the disrespect, and the way she thought she had me wrapped around her little finger. But I wasn't the weak man she believed me to be. I drive home in silence, my grip on the wheel tight enough to turn my knuckles white. The city lights blur past the windows, but I barely notice them. My head is spinning with everything I just heard. Anger simmers beneath the surface, threatening to boil over. The betrayal stings, but the audacity is what fuels the fire inside me. She thinks I'm weak. She thinks I'll just take this. By the time I reach my apartment, the anger has cooled into something sharper, determination. I step inside, shutting the door behind me with more force than necessary. The apartment feels eerily quiet, the hum of the city outside barely registering. I sit down on the couch and stare at the engagement ring still sitting in its box on the coffee table. She called it the ring of her dreams. The memory makes my stomach turn. I grab my laptop and log into my accounts. The list of expenses I've covered for her stares back at me: vacations, spa treatments, designer handbags. Every purchase feels like a fresh betrayal. She wasn't just after my money. She took my time, my love, my trust. But if she thinks I'm going to let her get away with this, she doesn't know me at all. The first step is easy. I pick up my phone and call my financial advisor. He answers on the second ring. "Freeze every joint account," I say, my tone leaving no room for questions. There's a pause on the other end. "Is something wrong, Mr. Carter?" "Not at all," I reply, keeping my voice calm. "This is just a precaution." Within hours, every credit card tied to me is deactivated. Every dollar she might have counted on is now out of her reach. It's not much, but it's a start. The next day, I go through the motions at work. Meetings, phone calls, emails. I handle it all with a calm smile, even though my mind is miles away. By the time I leave the office, I've already made the next move. Her favorite designer boutique? I call them and cancel her membership. The spa she loves so much? Her last appointment was exactly that. Her last. This isn't about pettiness. It's about sending a message. She played me, and now she's going to learn what it feels like to be on the losing side. That evening, I walk into my apartment and find her sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone like nothing's happened. She barely glances up as I drop my keys on the counter. "Hey, babe," she says casually, still staring at the screen. "How was your day?" I don't answer right away. My eyes linger on her for a moment, my mind racing with everything I want to say. But not yet. Timing is everything. Enlightening, I finally say, my tone colder than usual. That gets her attention. She sets her phone down and looks at me, frowning slightly. "Is something wrong?" she asks. "Not at all," I reply smoothly. "Actually, I was thinking we should have dinner tomorrow night. Just the two of us." Her expression softens, and she smiles. "That sounds amazing." I nod and head to the bedroom, already planning my next move. Tomorrow night will be the beginning of the end. The next evening, I make sure everything is perfect. The dining table is set with candles, the kind she loves to post on Instagram with captions about romantic evenings. A bottle of her favorite wine sits uncorked, breathing on the counter. She's always appreciated gestures like this, ones that make her feel special. Tonight, I'll give her exactly what she wants. She arrives home right on time, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor as she enters. She beams when she sees the setup, her eyes lighting up like she's already forgotten whatever led to my sudden generosity. "Wow," she says, her voice dripping with excitement. "What's the occasion? Do I need one?" I respond, keeping my tone even. "I thought it would be nice to have a quiet night together." She grins, walking over to kiss me on the cheek. "You're so thoughtful. This is why I love you." I fight the urge to laugh. Love me? I wonder if she even knows the meaning of the word. Instead, I motion for her to sit down. Dinner's almost ready. We talk casually as we eat. She chatters on about her day, the same self-centered monologue I've heard 100 times before. I nod in all the right places, occasionally chiming in to keep the conversation flowing. Inside, I'm biding my time, waiting for the perfect moment. When the plates are cleared and the wine is nearly gone, I lean back in my chair and study her. She's glowing, clearly pleased with herself. "You're in a good mood," I say. "Why wouldn't I be?" she replies with a laugh. "This has been such a lovely evening." I tilt my head slightly, letting a small smile play on my lips. "I'm glad. There's something I've been meaning to talk to you about." Her smile falters for just a second, but she recovers quickly. "Oh, what's on your mind?" I take a slow sip of my wine, letting the silence hang between us. "I overheard something interesting at the party the other night." Her eyes widen slightly, but she forces a laugh. "Really? Like what?" I set the glass down carefully. "Like you telling your friends you're only with me for my money." The words hit like a hammer. Her face goes pale, and for a moment, she's completely still. Then, she shakes her head, trying to recover. "That's not what I meant," she stammers. "You must have misunderstood." I lean forward, my gaze never leaving hers. "I didn't misunderstand anything. You were very clear. And so were your friends." She tries to laugh it off, but it's a hollow sound. "Babe, come on. You know how girls talk when they've had a few drinks." "I was just joking." I shake my head, my expression hard. "You weren't joking, and I'm done being played." Her smile vanishes, replaced by a look of desperation. "You're overreacting," she says quickly. "I didn't mean any of it. I love you, I swear." "Love?" I let out a short, bitter laugh. "You don't even know what that means. But don't worry. You won't have to fake it anymore." She freezes. "What do you mean?" I stand, taking the plates to the sink. My voice is calm when I respond, but there's an edge she can't ignore. "You'll find out soon enough." She stares at me as I rinse the plates, her confusion slowly giving way to panic. "What do you mean by that?" she asks, her voice shaky. She stands and moves closer to me, trying to catch my eye. "You're not serious, are you?" I keep my focus on the dishes, letting the sound of running water fill the silence. When I finally look at her, my expression is unreadable. "I'm as serious as you were when you laughed about using me in front of your friends." Her face flushes red, a mix of embarrassment and anger. "You're blowing this out of proportion. I told you, it was just a joke. Why can't you just let it go?" I dry my hands and turn to face her. "Because it wasn't a joke to you. It was the truth. You made a fool out of me, and you didn't even try to hide it. That's not something I can let go." For a moment, she looks like she's going to argue, but then she shifts tactics. Her eyes soften, and she reaches for my hand. "Baby, please. I know I screwed up, but you mean everything to me. I'll make it up to you, I promise." I pull my hand away, the contact feeling like a betrayal of its own. "You've already done enough," I say coldly. "You think I didn't notice the way you've been treating me? The way you've been spending my money, enjoying the lifestyle I gave you while barely even pretending to care." Her lip trembles, and for the first time, I see real fear in her eyes. "I made a mistake," she says, her voice breaking. "But I love you. I don't want to lose you." I crossed my arms, leaning back against the counter. You should have thought about that before you decided I was just a paycheck with a heartbeat. Her hands drop to her sides, and she looks at me like she doesn't recognize the man standing in front of her. Why are you being so cruel? She whispers. This isn't like you. No, it's not, I admit. But then again, I thought you were someone else too. She opens her mouth to respond, but I cut her off. Your credit cards? Cancelled. Your access to my accounts? Gone. All those little luxuries you've been taking for granted? They're over. You're going to have to figure out how to stand on your own 2 feet now. Her eyes widen, and her voice rises in panic. You can't do that. What am I supposed to do? I shrug, my voice calm but firm. Maybe you should have thought about that before you decided to bite the hand that fed you. She starts pacing, running her hands through her hair. This is crazy. You're overreacting. We can fix this. We can go back to the way things were. I shake my head. No, we can't. Because the way things were? It was a lie. She stops pacing, her face crumpling as tears begin to fall. Please, don't do this. I'll change. I'll do anything. Her words don't move me. They're too little, too late. You already made your choice, I say simply. Now you get to live with the consequences. Her tears start flowing harder, and she drops onto the couch like a puppet whose strings have been cut. For the first time since I overheard her at the party, I see the cracks in her armor. The confident, manipulative woman I thought I knew is gone, replaced by someone who looks scared and desperate. This can't be happening, she mutters to herself, her hands gripping the edge of the couch. We're engaged. We're supposed to be planning our wedding. Funny, I reply, walking toward the living room. You didn't seem too worried about that when you were laughing with your friends about how I'm just your meal ticket. Her head snaps up, her tear-streaked face contorted with desperation. I didn't mean it like that. I swear, I was just venting. Everyone does that. Please, don't throw away everything we've built. I sit down in the chair across from her, keeping my distance. Everything we've built? You mean everything I've built while you've been cashing in on it? Don't insult me. Her hands fly to her face as she starts sobbing. I don't know what else to say, she chokes out. I love you. I do. I just got caught up in stupid talk. It doesn't mean I don't care. The sight of her breaking down in front of me stirs something, but it's not compassion. It's clarity. For years, I ignored the small signs, the red flags. Her lavish spending, her reluctance to talk about real issues, her tendency to prioritize appearances over substance. I let it slide because I wanted to believe in her, in us. But now, the blinders are off. You care about the money, I say bluntly. You care about the comfort. You don't care about me. Her sobs pause, and she looks at me, her face crumpled and hurt. That's not true. I've been with you through everything. Doesn't that count for anything? I shake my head slowly. No, you weren't with me. You were with what I could give you. And the minute I stop giving, you'll be gone. That's not fair, she snaps, a flash of anger breaking through her despair. You think you're perfect? You think I don't have reasons to be upset? I raise an eyebrow. Upset? You could have talked to me. You could have been honest. Instead, you laughed at me behind my back and bragged about using me. She flinches like I've slapped her. I made a mistake, she says, her voice barely above a whisper. But everyone makes mistakes. Why can't you forgive me? I lean forward, resting my elbows on my knees. Because this wasn't just a mistake. It was a choice. And it wasn't just once. You've been living this lie for years. Her shoulders slump, and she stares at the floor, defeated. For a moment, the silence is deafening, the weight of my words settling over us like a heavy fog. What do I do now? She finally whispers, her voice trembling. I stand and walk to the door, grabbing my keys off the counter. You figure it out, I reply, because you won't be doing it here. Her eyes widen, and she jumps to her feet, panic radiating off her. Wait, what? You can't just kick me out. This is my home too. Her voice rises, the desperation in her tone impossible to miss. I turn back to her, my hand still gripping the keys. Your home? That's funny, because as far as I can tell, you've contributed nothing to it. Everything here. The rent, the furniture, the bills. I paid for all of it. And as of now, you're no longer welcome. Tears streak down her face as she crosses the room toward me, her hands clasped together as if in prayer. Please, don't do this. I'll change. I'll prove to you that I love you. Just give me another chance. I step back, putting space between us. No, you don't get another chance. I heard everything, every cruel word you said about me. There's no coming back from that. She starts shaking her head frantically, her voice rising. I'll fix it. I'll do whatever you want. Just don't throw me away like this. I laugh bitterly, the sound harsh even to my own ears. Throw you away? That's rich, considering you've been throwing me away for years. The only difference is now, I'm done pretending I don't see it. Her hands drop to her sides, and for a moment, her expression shifts from desperate to defiant. Fine, she snaps, her voice hardening. You want me gone? Then I'm leaving, but you'll regret this. You'll realize you're nothing without me. I take a deep breath, keeping my voice steady. The only thing I regret is not seeing you for who you really are sooner. She stares at me, her chest heaving with barely contained anger and humiliation. For a moment, I think she's going to say something else, but instead, she spins on her heel and storms toward the bedroom. I hear the sound of drawers opening and closing, the zipper of her suitcase, and the clatter of hangers as she hastily packs her things. When she reappears, her suitcase in tow, she pauses in the doorway. Her voice is quieter now, almost pleading. Are you really going to let me walk out of here like this? After everything? I meet her gaze, my expression firm. Yes, because this isn't the end for me. But it's definitely the end for us. She hesitates, her lips parting as if she's about to argue. But then she closes her mouth and nods. Without another word, she drags her suitcase out the door, slamming it shut behind her. I stand there for a long moment, staring at the closed door. The silence that follows is deafening, but for the first time in a long time, I feel a strange sense of peace. The weight I've been carrying, the lies, the manipulation, the doubt, has lifted. I know it won't be easy to move on, but I also know I've made the right choice. Walking over to the couch, I sink into the cushions and let out a long breath. The engagement ring still sits on the coffee table, a reminder of what could have been. I pick it up and turn it over in my hand, the diamonds catching the light. Tomorrow, I'll take it back to the jeweler. Tonight, I'll enjoy the quiet. The next morning, I wake up earlier than usual. The apartment feels still, quieter than it has in years, but the silence doesn't weigh on me. It feels like the first clean breath of air after being trapped in a smoke-filled room. I stand by the window with a cup of coffee, watching the city stir to life. The events of the past few days play back in my mind, but instead of anger or regret, there's a sense of clarity. She's gone, and for the first time in a long time, I'm in control. After finishing my coffee, I grab the engagement ring from the coffee table. The small velvet box feels heavier now, a symbol of everything I'd hoped for and everything I've let go. I head out to the jeweler's shop a few blocks away. The cold air stings my face, but it feels good, waking me up, sharpening my focus. The jeweler greets me with a polite smile as I step inside, the bell above the door chiming softly. His gaze shifts to the box in my hand. "How can I help you today?" he asks. I place the box on the counter and slide it toward him. "I need to return this." He opens the box carefully, his eyes studying the ring. "This is a stunning piece," he says. "Are you sure you want to return it?" "It didn't work out," I say, my voice even. He nods, his expression understanding. "We can refund the full amount since it's within the return period." "Thank you," I say, watching as he processes the return. When he hands me the check, it feels like more than just money. It feels like closure. With the ring handled, I spend the rest of the day clearing out the pieces of her from my life. Her clothes, her shoes, the scattered little things she left behind. It all goes into boxes. By the time I finish, the apartment feels lighter, as if I've scrubbed away years of heaviness in one afternoon. That evening, as I sit on the couch, the check from the jeweler still sitting on the coffee table, my phone buzzes. Her name flashes across the screen. I hesitate for a moment, considering ignoring it, but curiosity wins out. I answer, keeping my voice calm. What do you want? Her voice is shaky, like she's been crying. I just need to talk to you. Please, can we meet? There's nothing left to say, I reply. Please, she pleads. I know I made a mistake, but I can't just walk away from this. From us. You mean everything to me. I feel a flash of anger, but it's fleeting. I know better than to believe her now. What you mean, I say, is that you missed the lifestyle I gave you. That's what this is really about. That's not true, she cries. I love you. I swear I do. Just give me one more chance. Please. I take a breath and steady my voice. You already had your chance. You threw it away. She's quiet for a moment, and I hear her breathing hard on the other end of the line. I'll do anything, she whispers. Just tell me what to do. You want to know what to do? I say, my tone cold. Figure out who you are without me. Because I'm done. I hang up before she can respond and set the phone back down on the table. The weight of the conversation lingers, but it doesn't feel heavy. If anything, it feels like I've finally let go of something that was dragging me under. Looking around the apartment, I feel a strange sense of peace. This is my space now, my life. And for the first time in a long time, it's all mine. The next morning, the first thing I do is set the boxes by the door. I'll drop them off at her friend's place later, the one she's always running to for advice about how to spend my money. The thought makes me smirk. Let her friends deal with the fallout. I've done my part. The apartment feels different now, more open, like there's room to breathe. I spend the morning cleaning up, rearranging the furniture, and adding small touches that feel like me. No more decorative pillows I hated. No more ridiculous trinkets cluttering every surface. For once, the place feels like it's mine, not some showroom for her Instagram. After lunch, I sit down to go through my finances. Closing her accounts was just the beginning. I review every expense I've overlooked in the past few years, canceling subscriptions she signed us up for and cutting off unnecessary luxuries. By the time I'm done, the spreadsheet looks leaner, more controlled. It's satisfying in a way I didn't expect. My phone buzzes again. It's a message from her. I don't even need to open it to know it's more of the same. Apologies, promises, and pleas. I delete it without reading. She made her bed. Now she can lie in it. That afternoon, I head to the gym. It's been months since I've had the energy or focus to work out properly. Between work and dealing with her constant demands, I let myself fall into a routine of just getting by. But not anymore. I push through the weights, each rep feeling like I'm shedding another layer of her influence. By the time I leave, my body aches, but it's a good pain. It feels like progress, like I'm reclaiming parts of myself I forgot I had. That night, I meet up with a few friends at a bar downtown. It's been a while since I've gone out without her, and it feels strange at first, but the easy camaraderie quickly puts me at ease. They've all heard about the breakup by now, and while some offer sympathy, most just raise their glasses in support. To a fresh start, one of them says, and the rest of the group echoes the sentiment. I lift my glass with a grin, feeling lighter than I have in years. On my way home, I realize something. I've spent so much time wrapped up in her drama, her needs, her lies, that I forgot what it felt like to just live. To make decisions for myself, without worrying about what someone else would think. It's a strange feeling, but a good one. As I walk back into my apartment, the city lights glowing through the windows, I take a deep breath. This is the beginning of something new. And for the first time in a long time, I'm excited to see where it takes me. The next morning, I wake up feeling clear-headed, the best I've felt in months. I get dressed and grab the boxes of her belongings, ready to deliver them to her friend's place. The city hums with life as I drive through the streets, but my mind is calm. I've made my decision, and I'm sticking to it. Her friend, Kelsey, answers the door, her expression shifting from surprise to awkward sympathy. Hey, I wasn't expecting you. I motion to the boxes in my hands. These are hers. I figured she'd want them. Kelsey hesitates before stepping aside to let me in. She's been calling me nonstop, she says as I set the boxes down in her entryway. She's really upset. I shrug, keeping my voice neutral. She should have thought about that before she did what she did. Kelsey frowns, crossing her arms. Look, I'm not defending her, but don't you think maybe you're being too harsh? People make mistakes. Some mistakes can't be undone, I reply simply. She didn't just make a mistake. She made a choice. Over and over. Kelsey looks like she wants to argue but thinks better of it. Instead, she sighs and shakes her head. For what it's worth, I think you're doing the right thing. You deserve better. Thanks, I say, heading back toward the door. Take care. As I drive away, I feel a small sense of relief. That's one more thing off my plate. One more piece of her out of my life. Later that day, I dive into work. It's been a while since I've truly thrown myself into a project, but now I have something to prove, not to her, but to myself. The hours fly by as I focus on solving problems, building strategies, and reclaiming the confidence she quietly chipped away at over the years. By the time I leave the office, my phone buzzes again. Another text from her. This time, I don't even glance at it before deleting it. Whatever she has to say doesn't matter anymore. I'm done looking back. That evening, as I sit in my apartment, I start thinking about the future. For so long, my life revolved around her, what she wanted, what she needed. But now, for the first time in years, I have the freedom to focus on myself. I grab a notebook and start writing down goals. It feels strange at first, but the more I write, the more energized I feel. Travel plans, career aspirations, personal achievements, it all pours out onto the page. Each line feels like a step toward reclaiming the life I almost lost. When I'm done, I set the notebook down and lean back on the couch, a small smile tugging at my lips. The road ahead might not be easy, but it's mine, and that's all that matters. The next morning, I wake up to a knock at my door. It's persistent, almost frantic, and for a moment, I consider ignoring it. But curiosity gets the better of me, so I pull on a shirt and head to the door. When I open it, there she is, standing there with red, swollen eyes and holding her purse like it's her last anchor to reality. "We need to talk," she says, her voice trembling. I lean against the doorframe, crossing my arms. I thought I made myself clear. There's nothing left to say. "Please," she says, her voice cracking. "Just 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking." I glance down the hallway, thinking about shutting the door right in her face. But part of me wants to hear what she has to say. I step aside and motion for her to come in. She walks in slowly, looking around like she barely recognizes the place. Her eyes scan the empty spots where her belongings used to be, and I can tell she's struggling to hold it together. "You've got 5 minutes, I say, keeping my tone even. Make it count." She takes a deep breath, her hands fidgeting nervously. "I made a mistake," she begins. "I made a huge mistake. I let my friends influence me, and I got caught up in things that didn't matter. But I see it now. I see what I've lost." I watch her carefully, my face unreadable. "And what exactly do you think you've lost?" She looks at me with teary eyes, her voice trembling. "You. I lost you. And I didn't realize how much I needed you until you were gone." Her words land, but they don't have the effect she's hoping for. "You didn't lose me," I say. "You threw me away. There's a difference." Her shoulders slump, and she looks down at the floor. "I know I hurt you," she says softly. "I was selfish and stupid, and I took you for granted. But I swear, I can change. I'll do whatever it takes to fix this." I shake my head, keeping my voice firm. "You didn't just hurt me. You disrespected me. You made a joke out of everything we had. Do you honestly think a few apologies will erase that?" Tears stream down her face, but I feel no urge to reach out to her. This is the bed she made, and now she has to lie in it. "Please," she whispers, "just one more chance. I'll prove to you that I'm not the person you think I am." I take a step back, letting her words hang in the air. "You had your chance," I say after a moment. "You showed me who you are, and I believe you." She covers her face with her hands, sobbing quietly. "I don't know what to do," she says through her tears. "I don't know how to move on without you." "You'll figure it out," I reply, walking to the door and holding it open. "But you'll do it without me." She hesitates, her eyes pleading with me one last time. "This isn't who I want to be," she says softly. "I just need you to believe in me." I meet her gaze, my expression unflinching. I did, and you gave me every reason not to. She takes a deep breath, nodding slightly, and walks out the door. I close it behind her, leaning against it for a moment. The encounter leaves a weight in the air, but it's not regret I feel. It's relief. The silence after she leaves feels heavy at first, but as I stand in the middle of the apartment, it begins to shift. It's not suffocating anymore. It's liberating. The door is closed, and for the first time in years, I don't feel the need to reopen it. I walk over to the couch and sit down, staring out the window at the city below. The world keeps moving, people rushing to their lives, their jobs, their families. It feels surreal to be at this point, watching from a distance, but knowing I'm finally in control of my life again. For so long, it felt like I was living someone else's version of what my future should be. My phone buzzes on the coffee table. I glance down, half expecting her name to pop up again. But it's not her. It's an old friend, someone I haven't seen in years but used to rely on before she came into my life. "Hey man, haven't heard from you in a while. How's it going?" The message reads. For a moment, I debate whether to respond. But then I realize this is what I need, to reconnect with the people who matter, the ones who were there before everything got so tangled. I type out a quick reply, something simple but open-ended, and send it off. Over the next few days, I throw myself into the process of rebuilding. I focus on my work, taking on new challenges and staying late at the office because, for once, I'm not dreading coming home. I make a point to reach out to friends, setting up coffee meetings and dinners that remind me of who I used to be before I let her overshadow everything. The gym becomes a refuge. Each time I walk in, I push myself harder. It's not just about the physical strength. It's about reclaiming the discipline, the drive I let slip away. I'm reminded of what it feels like to work towards something real, something I can control. One night, I opened the notebook I started after she left. The goals I wrote down stare back at me, and for the first time, I don't feel daunted by them. I feel inspired. I add more to the list: plans to travel, new skills I want to learn, and projects I've always put on the back burner. Each item feels like a step forward, a reminder that there's life beyond her shadow. The calls and messages from her continue for a while. At first, I delete them without a second thought, but eventually, they slow, then stop altogether. I don't know where she is or what she's doing, and I don't care. The weight of her presence has lifted, and in its place is a sense of freedom I didn't realize I'd been missing. One evening, as I sit by the window watching the sunset over the city, my phone buzzes again. This time, it's another friend inviting me to a weekend getaway. A part of me hesitates. I've spent so much time shutting people out that the thought of reconnecting feels foreign. But I say yes. It's time to step outside of this bubble I've built and start living again. The next morning, as I pack my bag, I catch my reflection in the mirror. For the first time in a long time, I like the person I see staring back. The weekend getaway feels like the first real step into a new life. I meet up with a group of friends I haven't seen in years, guys I used to laugh with until my stomach hurt, people who knew me before the relationship that nearly swallowed me whole. The cabin we rented is perched on a quiet lake, surrounded by trees that seem to stretch endlessly into the sky. It's peaceful in a way I haven't experienced in years. We spend the first day hiking. The fresh air and the steady rhythm of my feet hitting the trail feel grounding. The group is lighthearted, full of banter and jokes that remind me of how easy life used to feel. I find myself laughing more than I expected, the tension I've carried for so long finally starting to melt away. That evening, we sit around a bonfire, beers in hand as the flames crackle and pop. One of my friends nudges me and says, "You've been quiet. What's on your mind?" I shrug, looking into the fire, just thinking about how much has changed. It feels good to be here, to get back to this. Another friend smirks. "You mean being yourself again?" I nod. "Yeah, something like that." They don't push me for details. They don't need to. They know enough to understand that I'm rebuilding, and they're giving me the space to figure out what that looks like. It feels good to be around people who see me, not the version of myself I try to be for someone else. The next morning, I wake up early and step outside. The lake is still, the surface smooth as glass, reflecting the pale light of dawn. I take a deep breath, feeling the cool air fill my lungs. For the first time in years, I feel genuinely alive. One of the guys comes out, handing me a cup of coffee. "You look like you're in deep thought," he says, sitting down on the porch steps beside me. "Just thinking about how much time I wasted," I admit. "I let her take over everything. My life, my choices, my happiness." He takes a sip of his coffee, nodding thoughtfully. "Yeah, but you're here now. That's what matters. You can't change what happened, but you can decide where you go from here." The simplicity of his words hits me harder than I expect. He's right. The past is done. All that's left is the future, and it's up to me to shape it. When I return to the city, I feel lighter, more focused. I dive back into work with a renewed sense of purpose. My performance doesn't go unnoticed. Within weeks, I'm offered a new project, one that comes with a significant promotion. The old me would have hesitated, worried about balancing it all. But the new me says yes without hesitation. I also start saying yes to other things. Invitations from friends, hobbies I've neglected, even a few opportunities to meet new people. It's not about rushing into anything. It's about exploring life on my own terms, discovering what I want instead of what someone else expects of me. One evening, I'm sitting at my desk, going over plans for the new project, when my phone buzzes. For a moment, I tense, half expecting it to be her again. But it's not. It's a message from one of my friends, a simple text that makes me smile. "You coming to trivia night tomorrow? Don't leave us hanging. We need your brain for the science questions." I laugh, shaking my head. It's such a small thing, but it feels huge. I text back a quick reply, confirming I'll be there. Life is moving forward, and for the first time in a long time, I feel ready to move with it. The weekend getaway feels like the first real step into a new chapter. I meet up with a group of old friends, people I haven't seen in years. These are the guys who knew me before everything got complicated, before my life became about compromise and pleasing someone else. We've rented a cabin by the lake, surrounded by tall trees and the kind of quiet that feels almost sacred. We spend the first day hiking through the woods. The air is crisp, and the steady rhythm of my feet hitting the trail feels grounding. The conversations are light, full of jokes and banter that remind me of simpler times. For the first time in years, I find myself laughing without reservation. It feels good. It feels real. That evening, we sit around a campfire, the flames crackling in the still night air. One of my friends nudges me and asks what's on my mind. "Just thinking about how much has changed," I say. "It's been a while since I felt this free." Another friend raises his beer and grins. "Here's to getting back to being yourself." The others join in, raising their bottles in a silent toast. The moment feels significant, like the closing of one chapter and the start of something better. The next morning, I wake up early and step outside. The lake is perfectly still, reflecting the soft light of dawn. I take a deep breath, the cool air filling my lungs. It's peaceful in a way I haven't experienced in years. One of the guys joins me, handing me a cup of coffee. "You look like you're thinking about something big," he says. "Just about how much time I wasted," I admit. "I let someone else dictate my life for too long." He nods and takes a sip of his coffee. "Yeah, but you're here now. That's what matters. You can't change the past, but you can decide what happens next." His words hit me harder than I expect. He's right. The past is done, and there's no point dwelling on it. The only thing I can control is what I do from here on out. When the weekend is over, I head back to the city feeling lighter. It's not just the fresh air or the laughter with old friends. It's the realization that I've taken the first real step toward rebuilding my life. I'm not looking back anymore. Back in the city, everything feels sharper and more vivid. The constant noise, the hurried pace, and the energy surrounding me don't overwhelm me the way they used to. Instead, they fuel me. I throw myself into my work with a renewed sense of purpose, taking on every challenge as an opportunity to prove something, to myself, not to anyone else. Within weeks, people start to notice. My manager catches me after a meeting one afternoon. She looks impressed, something I haven't seen in a while. "You've been doing great work lately," she says. "There's a new project coming up. It's high stakes, but I think you're the right person to lead it." For a second, her words take me by surprise. The old me would have hesitated, overthinking the decision, worrying whether I was ready for the responsibility. But that hesitation is gone now. I nod, already feeling the gears in my mind turning. I'd love to take it on, I tell her. Thank you. That evening, I sit at my desk with the project plans spread out in front of me. The scope is ambitious, but that only motivates me more. For too long, I let myself stay in the background, taking the easier path because it felt safe. But now, I'm ready to take the lead. This is my chance to show myself just how far I can go when I stop holding back. Outside of work, I make a point to say yes more often. Invitations from friends, events I might have ignored, even small things like grabbing coffee with someone I haven't seen in years. A friend invites me to a trivia night at a local bar, and instead of brushing it off, I decide to go. The place is packed, buzzing with laughter and energy. Teams huddle together over drinks and questions, their voices rising and falling in excitement. One of my friends grins as I help answer a question about space exploration. See? This is why we need you on our team. You're the only one who knows this stuff. I laugh, the sound coming more easily than it has in a long time. Being here, reconnecting with people who genuinely value me, feels right. These small moments remind me of the person I used to be, the person I'm working to rediscover. The calls and messages from her have stopped. At first, I expected to feel something, a pang of sadness, maybe even regret. But there's nothing, just relief. Her absence isn't a void. It's a space where I can finally breathe. For the first time in years, I feel like my life belongs to me again. One night, I pull out the notebook I started after everything fell apart. Flipping through the pages, I see the goals I wrote down, the ones that seemed so daunting at the time. Now, I cross a few off the list. I've reconnected with friends. I've gotten back into shape. I've taken control of my career. Each goal represents a step forward, a reminder of the progress I've made. I add a few more things to the list. Traveling is at the top now, followed by learning a new language and trying out hobbies I've always been curious about. Each new goal feels like an open door, a chance to move further away from the life I left behind. As I set the notebook aside, I take a moment to reflect. I don't need anyone else to validate me. I don't need someone to tell me I'm worth it. I know that now, and that knowledge feels like the most valuable thing I've gained through all of this. Over the following weeks, my life settles into a rhythm, but it's nothing like the monotony I'd grown used to. Each day feels like a step forward. At work, the new project keeps me on my toes. It's challenging, but I find myself thriving under the pressure. I've started staying late at the office, not out of obligation, but because I'm genuinely excited about the direction my career is taking. Outside of work, I keep saying yes, to plans, to people, to opportunities one would have brushed aside before. One weekend, a friend invites me to a cooking class. At first, I laugh at the idea. I've never been the type to spend hours perfecting a recipe, but something about it feels like a chance to try something new. I show up to the class unsure of what to expect and leave with a newfound appreciation for the art of making fresh pasta. More importantly, I leave with the reminder that stepping out of my comfort zone can lead to something worthwhile. I also start exploring the city in ways I haven't in years. Long walks through neighborhoods I used to overlook, stopping at small coffee shops and parks where I can sit and watch the world go by. There's a strange joy in rediscovering the simple things, in being present without the constant weight of someone else's expectations. One evening, I get a call from my sister. She lives out of state, and we haven't talked much over the past few years, but now she's excited to catch up. We talk for hours, reminiscing about our childhood and updating each other on our lives. It feels good to reconnect with her, to let her back into my world. "Why don't you come visit?" she says toward the end of the call. "It's been way too long." I hesitate for only a moment before agreeing. The thought of traveling, of leaving behind the city and the routine I've started to rebuild, feels like the next step. I book a flight for the following month, already looking forward to the change of scenery. The night before my trip, I sit down with my notebook again. The pages are starting to fill up. Each goal I've written down a reminder of how far I've come. I write down the trip to see my sister, along with a few other places I'd like to visit. The list is growing, and so is my confidence. As I set the notebook aside, my phone buzzes with a message from a friend. It's an invitation to a weekend camping trip. A few months ago, I would have said no without even thinking about it. But now, I pause and type out a quick reply. Count me in. Sitting back, I realize how much has changed. I'm no longer waiting for someone else to dictate my happiness. Every step I've taken has been my own, and each one has brought me closer to a life that feels truly mine. The visit to my sister's place is exactly what I need. When I step off the plane, she's there waiting for me with her arms wide open. It's been years since we've seen each other in person, but the bond is still there, strong and unshaken. The first evening, we sit on her back porch with a bottle of wine, catching up as the sun sets behind the hills. I'm proud of you, she says after a long pause. You've been through a lot, but you seem lighter now. Happier. I nod, taking a sip of my drink. I didn't realize how heavy everything was until I finally let it go. It's been a process, but I feel like I'm finally heading in the right direction. She smiles, reaching over to squeeze my hand. You deserve that. You deserve to be happy. The next few days are filled with moments like this, warm, uncomplicated, and full of the kind of love and support that feels like a foundation being rebuilt. We talk about our parents, our childhood, and the dreams we used to share when we were kids. She tells me about her life, her husband, and her plans for the future. It's a reminder of how important it is to nurture these connections, the ones that don't take from you but instead build you up. On the flight back home, I find myself staring out the window, watching the clouds drift by. For the first time in what feels like forever, I'm not worried about what's waiting for me on the other side. There's no dread, no anxiety, just a quiet sense of purpose. When I get back to the city, I dive headfirst into life. The camping trip with my friends is already planned, and I spend the week before it gathering gear and preparing for a weekend in the wilderness. It's a new experience for me, one I might have avoided in the past. But now, I'm ready for the challenge. The weekend turns out to be incredible. The first night, as we sit around the campfire under a sky full of stars, one of my friends leans over and says, "You've changed, man. In a good way. You seem solid." I laugh, shaking my head. It's been a journey. Well, whatever you're doing, keep at it, he says. It's working. As I look up at the stars, a sense of gratitude washes over me. For the first time in a long time, I feel grounded, not just in where I am, but in who I am. When I get back to the city, my notebook is the first thing I reach for. I cross off another goal, reconnecting with family, and add a few more. The list keeps growing, each new addition a reflection of the life I'm building. One of the goals I write down feels especially bold. Start something new. It's vague, but it feels right. There's an idea forming at the back of my mind, something I haven't allowed myself to consider in years. I don't know what it will look like yet, but I know it's time to explore it. The idea of starting something new lingers in my mind over the following weeks. It's more than just a goal. It feels like a spark, a challenge to push myself further. I think about the things I've always wanted to do, but never had the time or courage to pursue. Slowly, the vision starts to take shape. One evening, after a particularly productive day at work, I sit down with my notebook. Instead of listing goals, I sketch out a plan. It's rough, messy, but it excites me. I've always wanted to start my own business, to create something that's entirely mine. The thought feels daunting, but for the first time, it also feels possible. I spend the next few weeks researching, talking to people in my network, and putting together the pieces. It's hard work, but every step feels rewarding. I wake up each morning with a sense of purpose, ready to tackle whatever comes next. As I build this new vision, my personal life continues to blossom. My friends start noticing the change in me, the way I've become more present and confident. I'm saying yes to more opportunities, whether it's trying a new hobby, meeting new people, or simply taking time to enjoy the life I've rebuilt. One afternoon, during a casual lunch with a colleague, they bring up an event happening in the city, a networking mixer for entrepreneurs and professionals. At first, I hesitate. The idea of walking into a room full of strangers feels intimidating, but then I remember the promise I made to myself. Say yes more often. Take chances. I show up to the event feeling nervous but determined. The room buzzes with energy, and for a moment, I stand by the door, unsure where to begin. But then someone approaches me, a friendly smile on their face, and we start talking. The conversation flows easily, and before I know it, I've met several people who share my goals and interests. That night, as I leave the event, I feel a sense of accomplishment. It's a small step, but it's a step forward. I'm building something, not just professionally, but personally. I'm creating a life that feels full, purposeful, and entirely my own. Months pass, and the foundation I've been building grows stronger. My business idea evolves into a concrete plan, and I finally take the leap, launching it with a mix of excitement and fear. It's not easy, but it's worth every ounce of effort. Each small success feels like a victory, a reminder of how far I've come. In my personal life, I continue to grow. I meet new people, reconnect with old friends, and explore parts of the city I'd forgotten about. I even start dating again, cautiously at first, but with an open mind. It's not about replacing what I lost. It's about discovering what I truly want and deserve. One evening, as I sit in my apartment looking out over the city lights, I reflect on the journey that brought me here. The pain, the betrayal, the anger. It all feels distant now, like a bad dream I've finally woken up from. What remains is the life I've built from the ashes, stronger and more authentic than anything I had before. This is the life I was always meant to live, and this time it's mine. Thank you for following along with this story. Have you ever had to rebuild your life after a setback? Share your thoughts, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories like this.